How do you each of you like to start designing a project? Is it like just drawing hand-drawn designs, or do you like do it digitally, or do you make models?
It's for me. I mean, if I start, I mean, I do all of that, and it generally depends on what the project is. But my first thing is to try and immerse myself in visual images, really. So part of it is the research and just spending and allowing yourself enough time to experiment, really, and look for reference. Sometimes it takes you in the wrong direction, and you just gather a big source material file that sort of stands you in good stead for the rest of the production, because you can draw back into that material. So when I want to change something, I just have all that on my computer, so I can actually refer back to it. And when it comes to color choices, I've got things to compare against it. But that's the starting point. The second point is I usually do very, fairly quick sketches of what the individual sets are, and then I move onto the computer, and then back to the drawing, back to the computer, and then models as well.
There's a constant, I think, theme to how a lot of designers work. Early on, I think the trick is to try to get the director to engage as much as possible, and you're trying to stimulate conversation and start talking about things. So for me, it's to try to find a space with walls and filling the walls with images, as many images as possible. And I like to do it in story order. So you start to get like a blurry idea of some of the ideas or some of the images that are kind of constant, and then that wall you keep iterating and keep changing and keep maybe you're putting up some location photos or some additional research or whatever, and it just sort of it's a constant refining and waiting for things to get crisper.
When you're building sets on like a soundstage or a warehouse, like you have more freedom in the sense that you can accommodate what you need. Like if you need the camera here, you could like move a wall or whatever. But when you're on location, like in an actual house or building or something, and there's only so much you can control, does that force you to be more creative or creative in a different way because of those constraints?
For me, I think that depends on the film and the style of the film and the direction the film is going in. If I was given the choice, I would have everything on a soundstage, because it's more fun for us and we get to control it. And locations, yes, they have limitations and you have to buy into that. But the hardest bit in comparison between soundstage and locations, usually, you've got a limited period of time to get in. You have to dress it quickly. It doesn't allow you the process quite as much of the process of just allowing things to develop and expand on it, really. Whereas a stage, ideally, you have that early enough that you can rehearse things. You can, as you say, you can take walls out, but you can actually sort of build on the look of it a bit, get it to a stage, and then often I do another sweep with more dressing or take dressing away. It's just that luxury that the studio gives you as a designer, an awful lot more control.
I like both. I like working on location. I like working on stage. It's every project's different. What's difficult about being on location is that you have to move out the homeowner's crap.
Yes.
And then kind of, okay, let's get all this stuff out of here. On Ford versus Ferrari, we needed to create an entire neighborhood for Ken Miles and Molly Miles and Peter's house. We gutted the interior of a house in Highland Park, moved everything out, redid their kitchen, repainted, put the new carpets and everything. And it overlooked a garage, or like a shop that also had to be completely gutted, and a whole like strip mall and everything. So yeah, it's a lot of work when you're out in the wild. You're dealing with weather and the heat and we were shooting in the middle of the summer. It was 110 degrees. The first day of shooting was 115 degrees in Lancaster at Willow Springs, and all of our extras were in wool shirts, and so you're dealing with being out in the elements. That makes it fun.
What was your biggest splurge on a production design? Because you guys don't always have a lot of money in your budget. So was there like any particular design where it's like, I just need to spend like the money on this to get this done?
I'll take this one because this one, this was a kind of a splurgy movie in a way. I mean, we did a one-day shoot that was about $1 million.
God.
It was the interior of the Ford Rouge factory, which at the time was in '64 it was the biggest assembly plant in the world. It was and raw materials would come into one side of the Rouge, raw rubber, raw metal. They had their own metal foundry, and then finished cars would come out the other end. It was really an extraordinary place. And so we took over a warehouse in downtown LA, built 3 working assembly lines. We bought 21 Ford Falcons and completely restored them, and had them rolling on these assembly lines that were completely recreated. And then we had a whole hallway of offices on the upper platform, kind of opening up into this magnificent space that was probably about 250 feet long. It was pretty. That was a pretty good day.
$1 million, well worth it.
But it's it's nice, splashy, big opening to the movie, and it puts you into the. I think it's really it works well in that it's very visceral, and it feels, you can really feel that. You can really feel the reality of that, of that space, and it sets the table for who this character is for Ford.
As far as and in Rocketman, there was no real splurge apart from just the quantity of sets we were building, as opposed to trying to do it on location. We decided to spend the money there. It was money that probably, on the surface didn't look like it was in the budget really.
Francois, you were saying before how you guys have to become experts on subjects and look into these various worlds you might not know anything about when you started. So has there been any particular thing that you've researched on any previous movie that now you're just kind of into, as a fan? Are you more into cars now?
I definitely, I definitely respect these cars. I mean, at the end of the movie, I was really close to buying a bathtub Porsche. They were like, we got to, they bought some bathtub Porsches, and they were getting rid of them for $10,000 each. And I'm like, but these are really beautiful, beautiful automobiles, and a lot of them were handcrafted and hand-built, and I have a whole new appreciation. And if you ever get a chance to go to the Peterson Museum on Wilshire, it's really remarkable to get up to these. They're really works of art. I mean, they're so beautiful. The Ferrari P3 is one of the most beautiful cars ever made, I think. It looks like a woman in recline, and it's absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous. And it's impossible not to fall in love with these cars. And so, yeah, I've definitely turned into a fan.
I mean, in terms of, I really like cars as well. I mean, I did Baby Driver with Edgar, and so we went through the car process. And they're really fun. It's a sort of dream job, that you would have dreamt of as a child, really. I certainly would like to have played around with a lot of those
There
cars.
was a character who liked rum in a movie, and I got it was
So
never
you're really into rum.
Yeah.
Lastly, what are some of your favorite sets in movies? Yeah, all movies. Your favorite movies? Or maybe it's not even your favorite movies.
I mean, for me, I still always just like The Shining.
Oh.
I know it's a sort of cliche and obvious choice, but there is something brave and bold about the choices made in that film.
I agree with you. The exterior facade with the snowbank, it's one of my,
so clever.
in the little window, it's the
And when you consider
favorite.
where it was shot, which is basically the smallest stage space, it's got smaller because they've pulled some of it down, but it's in a very small area of North London. And most of the exterior, in fact, nearly all of it, apart from the approach, which is filmed in a suburban area of North London. And I never, until I sort of spent a bit of time there, I never really broke it apart. I was quite happy to believe that it was all filmed. I don't know why
real, yeah.
that it was.
My favorite set is going back to Jacques Tati's Playtime. He built a city where Charles de Gaulle Airport now sits, and he used all of his profits. He used all of his own money, and he built this glass and steel city for the movie. It cost a fortune. It's absolutely, if you ever get a chance, it's on Blu-ray on Criterion. It's absolutely spectacular.
Nice. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and thank
you
you
very
everyone
much.
for coming
Thank
out.
you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.